Hello people, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Okay guys, got a post here from Hedera that I thought I'd share with you because this is an important factor in regards to what is going to help with Hedera getting mass adoption. So it's quite an important thing here. So they say, members of the Hedera ecosystem support the Risk Mitigation Framework in brackets RMF for non-financial risks in blockchain led by the GBB Council and Oliver Wyman. Referencing the RMF helps regulators set clear expectations and standards for blockchain-based markets with fewer intermediaries. Okay, so just got here how Hedera supports this. Speed and finality. Built-in compliance in brackets OFAC, AML, KYC. Transparent governance and verifiable node operations. Scalable, powered by Hero, Hedera's open source code managed by the IF Decentralized, and HIP process ensures community driven growth. This RMF underpins our vision for public permission networks ensuring safe, compliant adoption in regulated finance. Okay, so this kind of stuff here that we're talking about is what's going to basically help Hedera and other networks as well, not just Hedera, but Hedera specifically because of the features that they have, get to a point where they're basically kind of in the line with banks. So I'm not going to get too deep into this at the moment because this isn't like an XRP video, but you'll have heard that Ripple applied for a banking license basically, right? And I don't know if you've heard, but there's been a bit of controversy where some banking associations and some big banks have all come together to write a letter to the governing body who regulate these licenses, etc., to basically say, can you delay your decision on this? And they're basically, long story short, the reason why they're saying that is because they're a threat to the banks. They are. I've done a video not so long ago and my literal title was Hedera is a threat to the banking system. And the reason why I'd said that is because there was a use case that had come out from a company on Hedera where they was basically giving out like these kind of, I believe it was like business loans if I remember rightly, but basically the way it was before is that these banks were basically charging them like ridiculous money because they had no other alternative to do something that they should have just been entitled to, right? And so what the deal is here is that crypto, Hedera included, it's a threat to the banking system. It literally is. And so these banks now, they're getting scared. They really are. Like, they're trying to push back against crypto. Now, don't get me wrong. They are trying to adopt crypto, but they want to be the guys who are pushing the crypto services, right? They don't want these networks and these companies to come in and start creating their own banks and stuff like that. They want them to be a thing where, the companies can't have the same power as the banks, and the banks are the ones who have all the control. And look, the banks have been here for many, many years. I do think that overall they will be here for many more to come. I don't think banks will go completely obsolete, but I do think it is a thing where they will lose a lot of their customer base and a lot of their relevance. I do think that's a very strong possibility. So yeah, like this is what the banks fear. Like crypto is a thing where you can do so much more with like no middlemen. Right? Like you don't need middlemen anymore. You can do things like smart contracts and stuff like that. So you can do certain things without there needing to be, a middleman. Now, I'm not saying it's going to wipe out that entirely, but it can minimize it, right? And so, when it comes to like what these cryptos can do for industries and companies worldwide, this is something where in terms of the banking system, what Hedera can provide as to why, if they was going to start to look going elsewhere for services, Hedera can support this kind of stuff. So speed and finality, obviously that takes out in terms of like when you think of like Swift, for example. So how at the moment there are banks who are doing like testing projects with Hedera, doing cross-border payments with stable coins. Speed and finality is important, right? Because with Swift, right, the current messaging system that they do, it is just a messaging system. So Swift just makes the payment in terms of like the messaging side of the payment, but they still have to do the settlement on the back end as well, separately. And the problem with that is it can take a long time to do. It can be a lot of behind the scenes work. Whereas with Hedera, you've got the speed because you can do it instantly within seconds, and the actual finality, like it settles the payment as well, right? Like it's actually done on both ends, complete. So that's clearly a whole better system that we currently have within the banking system, right? Built-in compliance. This is huge. OFAC, AML, KYC. So I've told you this before. This is something that is absolutely massive. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I know this because of my line of work. I know how big of a deal this is. OFAC, AML, KYC are huge factors when it comes to banking. Long story short, when it comes to these kinds of things, these are not optional. These are regulatory requirements, right? So if they're not doing like AML, KYC checks or following OFAC sanctions, like this is things that can lead to a bank losing their license in the worst case scenario, right? Like this is how serious it is. So these are big things. These 3 factors right here are massive things. And so when you've got that built in, that's something that I've said before could be a huge thing for Hedera. That's something that could bring a lot of enterprise institutions, etc., coming over to Hedera. I really do believe that, because that is a massive thing. So having that built in, that's exactly what banks want, because this isn't something that they can play around with. It's not something that they can say, okay, you know, we'll deal with that later. Like they have to be following this. They really do. So it is something that's very important. Transparent, governance, and verifiable node operations. So obviously, again, that's about the transparency. You know, who's doing what. You can verify the nodes, so there's nothing, you know, nefarious going on or anything like that. Also shows you trust in terms of the stability of the network and that kind of thing, because you can see all the nodes, etc. Obviously going to help with that regard. Scalable, powered by Hero. So you definitely want a network that can scale. Obviously, that's going to be a huge benefactor when it comes to picking a network. The best example I can give you this is Ethereum. You know, like, I remember when there was an NFT coming out on Ethereum back in the day, in the previous bull run. I think it was Bored Apes, if I'm remembering rightly. And I remember seeing a message from someone. I didn't bother doing it as I wasn't interested in that NFT, but I remember someone saying like they'd spent something like $3,000 or $5,000 trying to mint a Bored Ape NFT, and they never actually got it minted. So imagine that. Imagine you spending $3,000 to $5,000 trying to get something done, but it doesn't even end up getting done anyway. So forget the fact that you paid $3,000 to $5,000. You've paid that and you still haven't actually done the action that you needed to get done. That's unacceptable. That is just not going to work when you're talking about, you know, networks that need to be used by banks, governments, companies, industries, right? They can't deal with that. That is just not going to be something that's sustainable. So again, that's an example as to why Hedera will have a much better edge in that regard over the competition. Yeah, it's scalable. So in terms of Ethereum can't compete with that. Absolutely not. HIP process ensures community-driven growth. Yeah, this is the thing with Hedera. It's not just for enterprise, and this is something that Charles Adkins had addressed not so long ago when, you know, there was that whole controversy around, I forgot his name now, but it was the guy who was working for the Hedera Foundation, and there was a controversy around the whole BlackRock thing, the post. I forgot his name, but basically, you know, one of the things that Charles Adkins has said is like, look, we want to build trust in the community again. You know, we want this to be a thing where we're not just kind of just focused on just the enterprise side of things. We want retail to have trust in us too, and, you know, be comfortable with us and believe in us as a network. So, you know, that kind of thing, helping the growth, being community driven, I think that's a big thing. Like I said this before, when the whole BlackRock post thing happened, the whole thing was going on, I was like, it's good that Hedera are, you know, going for enterprises and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But without the retail, they wouldn't be where they are. So don't forget that. Like, I'm not saying that, you know, they can't still go for the enterprise and stuff like that, but it's one hand washes the other. Like, don't think that you can just let go of retail and you guys will be fine. You need retail too. So yes, I'm saying that retail are depending on Hedera too, because they're hoping that the network will do good things and bring them money. But Hedera also need that funding from people who believe in them, right? And who believe in their projects and want to support them. They need both. They both help each other. So, you know, I really do believe, being community driven is going to be a beneficial factor here. So yeah, like taking all these things into account, yeah, I absolutely do believe these are, imperative things that we're talking about in terms of, Hedera being accepted by, regulated entities, right? In terms of, becoming that next level of adoption, right? Like this is the kind of stuff that we want to see. So all these factors here could play a huge part in Hedera's long-term growth and adoption. I think this is great. The things that Hedera have got, this is why I really do believe in Hedera as a network. I really do think long term, it's got a bright future ahead of itself. And these are the kind of reasons why, these kind of things that I covered, this is what shows me, like what reason have I got to be negative? Unless something was to come out that was an unforeseen circumstance that I couldn't have predicted at the time, then no, things are looking great. So yeah, I'm really excited to see this kind of stuff, because we are getting to a phase now where, because we've got a pro crypto president and a pro crypto party involved, like everything is moving at a much faster pace now, right? Everything is really picking up at accelerated pace. So we're getting to that point where, like this is going to start getting adopted on a bigger scale. At a much, like how we were before when, the other party was in for the last 4 years. We're not going to be dealing with that now. Like, I'm very interested to see where crypto will be in another 4 years' time now, because I think we'll be in a whole different world in terms of crypto adoption. Like I think there's going to be so many things that's going to be put forward during this 4-year term with a pro crypto president and party. I think it's going to really change things around. I really do. So really intrigued to see how this goes, but these are the kind of things that, banks and institutions will be looking at when they're trying to pick out different types of networks to utilize for any type of like these services. So this is great to see. Thank you very much for watching this. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell. Take care.